the recording, and here we go. So this is our webinar on how to get great online customer service happening for your business. And I just want to say quickly that Daniela from Witches Falls Cottages has just said hello to everybody online. So hello Daniela, thank you for sending that. And
Hi,
now,
Daniela.
so I'm now going to hand the reins over to Beck, and I will monitor the questions and the chat and the hands up just in case anybody is wanting to ask a question. And in the meantime, it's over to you, Beck, so thank you very much for today.
Great, thank you so much, Susan. It's always so much fun working with you guys. So, and a big hello to everyone from Tasmania. And yes, we're hoping that our technology is going to work well for us, but you never know with technology, but we'll see how we go. So, yes, obviously today we're going to be talking about customer service. It's once you scratch the surface, there are so many things that you can consider customer service online. So I've tried to distill it down into some really clear messages for you guys. So we'll get started, and please just type any questions whenever you're ready. And if I don't notice them because I'm too busy talking, Suze will let me know about it. Okay, so right, there we go. First problem with the computer, wouldn't go through. Agenda. So today this is what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at what customers expect, responding to customers, responding in different channels, so that simply means social media or email or anywhere online really. Negative comments and how to deal with those, and business processes to make your life easier as well. Okay, this is an oldie but a goodie. Suze and I were having a chuckle yesterday when Suze reminded me about this one. This is I'm sure a lot of you know about it, but this gentleman here, a country music player, put his guitar, checked in luggage with United Airlines in America, and he heard someone on the flight saying, "Oh, I think those bag handlers are throwing that guitar around." And he then, when he arrived at his destination, he noticed that his guitar, which is worth a few $1,000s, was badly damaged and he couldn't play it anymore. So he went through the usual processes of complaining, but got absolutely nowhere, and was really frustrated with the process. And so what he did what he does best, and he wrote a song. And it was called United Breaks Guitars. It's actually a catchy little song, so I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to jump online and yeah, have a listen to that. And I guess there's a couple of messages here. The first is that you need to actually deal with any sort of complaints pretty much straight up, and in a way that makes the customer satisfied. And the second part of the story is if the customer isn't satisfied, they can go online and generate a lot of bad publicity. So this one here's got over 12 million, well, nearly 13 million hits. So yeah, he's done a bit of damage to their reputation, but a great interesting story, I believe. Okay, so why is it important to understand etiquette? It helps you maintain a consistent presence. It helps you from unintentionally breaking the laws, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Helps you connect with your customers, and helps you promote your tourism business too. And of course, whenever we're considering any sort of communication, it's really important to consider your target market or your audience. So I'm sure all of you have clear in your head who your target market is, what demographic they look like. You'd also probably have a secondary and maybe a tertiary market as well, and you'd know your source market, so you'd know where they came from. So I'm guessing you guys would have a pretty good idea in your heads what your market looks like. And it's also important for all online communications to consider your brand. And we've all heard it before that a brand isn't just a logo. It's really about the feeling that people get when they interact with you. So the brand is really important, and it will flow through with everything that we're talking about here. And so there's this thing called a corporate voice, and corporate voice just means, it's a very corporate sounding term, but it just means the kind of voice that you will use when you're talking to consumers, not just online but offline as well. So if you think of something like, say, Richard Branson, his corporate voice with his Virgin Airlines is very relaxed yet professional. And you could probably think of other corporate voices, like very high-end, very very almost snobby corporate voice, but in a way that appeals to the market. And of course there's really fun and funky corporate voices as well. So the corporate voice, you need to consider, will you be formal or more relaxed? Will you be promotional or strictly educational? Who exactly is your audience, as we've mentioned? And will they be offended easily? And will you talk as we or I? So it's really about making sure everyone in your business knows what your corporate voice is. And in my business, the cruise company that I used to have here in Launceston, we were always, we did actually model ourselves on Virgin Airlines. We decided that's what we wanted to be like, very professional but fun-loving and having a ball. And that came across in all of our communications as well. So this is probably a no-brainer to most of you, but the consumers expect a prompt reply, and you know yourself, if you send off an inquiry, you pretty much want an answer straight away. In your head, you need that answer straight away. Whether or not you get it is a whole nother story. So if a customer has a choice between say 2 B&Bs, you've got one of the B&Bs, and you respond after about 13 hours, where the other one responds in about 30 minutes, they're probably going to get the business. So a no-brainer, but something to consider, and depending on the level of business, something to have in your communication strategy as well. And of course they expect polite and courteous. That I'm sure goes without saying, and I'm sure you're all very polite and courteous when you're talking to your customers, but I have seen some very bad examples of people not responding in a polite and courteous way. Do not leave inquiries unattended or unanswered. That again seems fairly obvious, but I've seen lots of cases of that, particularly if you are really busy, it's in peak season, and someone's asked you once again if you've got any availability on the most busiest day of your year. It would be tempting just to say, look, sorry, I'm not even going to answer that. I'm too busy to even respond. It's really important that you respond. There are stories of people responding and saying the response to, say, an email is simply no, full, and that's the response, which is not very good for the tourism industry in your area. So always try for alternative dates, but as you know, customers have specific dates. Doesn't always work. That's when you work with your local businesses and have some recommendations. And of course your visitor information centre as well are great. They've got the time to spend to actually work out an alternative for your customers, even if you haven't. And another thing that I've seen happen across many tourism businesses a lot is misunderstanding. So you just shoot off a quick email and you think you've written it okay, but in actual fact it came across completely different to the customer. So here's just a few tips to make sure that there's no misunderstandings. And that is, of course, easy to understand language. Not everyone is necessarily as articulate as you are, so I'll use the words dumb it down a little, but it's not really about dumbing it down. It's more about keeping it simple, keeping it really simple. And I always encourage my clients to repeat the details back in your answer. If you're responding back make sure, and it could be just simply dates and times, etc., or if you're organising a function or something like that, make sure that you write it back, and that's just as much for you to get it in your head what exactly they want. Again, be clear and concise, friendly and courteous, and don't use too much slang or jargon. In fact, try not to use it at all. I'm sure a foreigner wouldn't understand if we were talking about dead horse when we meant sauce or something like that. And of course, avoid making jokes like what I did just then, or sarcastic comments, because they just mightn't get what you're talking about. Particularly sarcasm doesn't come across too well online. Now there's this really good resource online which is called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and this is simply gives you some really good advice on how to make your online content readable to people with varying disabilities. And it's really, really useful information. I have a son who has dyslexia, and he really struggles with all sorts of reading, and sometimes I can see websites that he can get really well, and others it just really throws him in a whole different direction. So
sorry, Beck, can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
We've just had a question come through saying you've got a lovely voice but you're quiet. Can you turn up your volume a little bit on your end?
Oh, I reckon I can. Let's see. Can you hear that? Is that better?
Okay, so I'm not sure who asked that question because it hasn't put a name through, but does that, if Beck keeps continuing on now, can you hear her? Do you want to just keep going and we'll see? I'll just get whoever that was that just sent me the question.
Yeah,
if
sure.
you could just send me another quick note to say, yep, can hear her now, that'd be great. And I'll go back on to mute. Well, back to you, Beck.
Cool. But can you hear me okay, Suze? Or?
You're louder now. I can hear you quite clear too. Yep.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, well, let me know if I start being too loud. We don't want that either. Okie dokie. So another thing to consider is that not everyone has the same sense of humour as you. I love pictures of dogs in outfits. My husband thinks that they are the worst things out. So customers definitely don't necessarily have the same sense of humour as you. So again, if you're a small business, this needs to be considered as a part of everyday what you do. If you're a larger business, this needs to go into some sort of communication strategy. Inappropriate behaviour. I would always say to my staff, don't say anything that you would not do in the real world. So don't get online and blast someone, and don't say use all capitals, because that's yelling, considered yelling at people. And remember, everything that you put online can be recorded and kept forever. So people can just take screenshots, but they can also record the screen as well. So always keep yourself tidy when you're online.
And sorry, Beck,
and of course swearing in offensive language.
Sorry, I've just had a hand up, and I'll just from David.
Yeah.
So I might just unmute David.
Sure.
And David, if you want to talk to Beck, go ahead.
That'd be great.
Oh, sorry, it's Karen here as well with David. Look, it was just to say that we could hear Beck.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you very much. I'll put you back on mute. That's okay. Thank you.
That's okay.
That's great. It was good to hear you too. I love hearing people's voices. Okay. Yes, sorry. So I also think it's really important never to mention anything controversial in our business, both online and offline. We had in our policy, we had never mentioned anything to do with religion, sex and politics, because those three things used to always divide our customers. So we had a policy never to mention it. Go for it when you're not in business mode, but when you're in business mode, just avoid those topics. And I'm sure you guys could think of lots of other topics to avoid. And it's simply because you never know where your consumers stand as far as that goes. And of course, good old industry lingo. We do this really well in the tourism industry. I remember when I first started working for Tourism Tasmania, I was in charge of writing a document that went through and outlined all the acronyms that we had, and we had about 40 or 50 of them. It went on and on. So yeah, the lingo, we have a lot of it. And I remember when I was in business, I would keep on responding to the people and saying, oh, because you're in the industry, I'm going to give it to you FOC, or because you're in media, you'll get it FOC. And then every now and then I get a question back and saying, what does FOC mean? And of course it means free of charge, but they didn't know that. I use the words every day. So we need very much to keep our lingo to ourselves and spell it out for our customers. Now these little things, these are called emoticons. They're actually born out of frustration, really. People that, well, it really started because we couldn't get our emotion across through text online, and so people started to create these little smiley faces or sad faces or winks, etc., and you can see them all there. Sometimes, depending on where you're actually typing it, a smiley face, for example, might just appear as a colon and a bracket, but sometimes the computer will actually convert it to a proper smiley face you can see up the top there. So it's just facial expression representation. In terms of whether you should use it or not, again, this comes back to your corporate voice, to what sort of what sort of online image and what sort of messages you want to get across to people. If you're fun, crazy fun, dealing with teenagers, go for it. Use all of these things and more, because they will certainly understand it. I've had people say to me, why do you put a colon and a bracket on the end of your sentences sometimes, Rebecca? That's not good grammar. And I had to explain that it was a little smiley face on the side. So not necessarily appropriate for business, but again, it comes down to your individual business. And so the different channels, there's, as you know, well, in the old days in tourism, when I first started out, we had phones and faxes, and emails were only just coming in. And so there are different channels for, obviously nowadays to back then. Different channels will determine how you respond. We'll just go through some of those. So good customer service, this is in addition to the other stuff that we've just been mentioning. So emails obviously require a more detailed response. You can make them as long as you like, but not too long, because the client will get very bored. And also you can, like I said before, repeat the details back to the client in your response. And it is more formal than social media. It's more like a letter of the old days, but not quite like that. Replying in 24 hours or sooner. Now that's the industry standard, or the internet standard, not just our industry, but I would say that you need to reply sooner than that. And I would say reply as soon as possible. If it's 3 in the morning, don't worry, don't get up and do it. But yeah, as soon as you can is always the way to go. If you can't reply properly, if it's one of those emails that sit there for a bit and you just think, wow, it's going to take me a few hours to reply to this one, a little short acknowledgement reply is better than no reply. Just say, hi, thanks so much for your email. I'm really keen to get onto this and reply to you as soon as possible. I'm just going out on a tour and I'll be back this afternoon and I'll get back to you, something to that effect. Maybe a little better than that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so websites. Websites again, are a little different. Contact details predominantly on every page of your website. Now, any of you that have been along to some of our other presentations, you'll know that we're big fans of Book Now buttons, usually in the top right-hand corner of the website. I strongly believe there should be other contact details up in that area as well. I also think that you need to have them down the bottom, and you can have them within your text as well, so contact us within the text. That's a hyperlink. Yeah, so I would definitely include that on my website. The other thing that I say to people pretty regularly is if you fulfill every question you receive on your website, that's a good thing. And what I mean by that is every question you receive offline, the ones that you get on the phone, the ones that you get via email, the ones that you get in person. I'm sure every business could come up with about, I don't know, 30 frequently asked questions that customers ask. And it's just a matter of courtesy to have those questions responded to online on your website. It doesn't have to be in a frequently asked questions section. It just, the information just needs to be fulfilled so that at 3 o'clock in the morning, if they want to know something, the response is there on the website. If they want to talk to you further about it at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's okay, but the information is there whenever they want it. It needs to be easy to read for everybody, as we've discussed, and the tone, of course, will depend on your brand. And of course, yeah, website is a very important part of your brand. But that's a whole other story for another day. So on to social media. The big tricky thing with social media is to be available. It's very much a 24/7 situation now. It depends, of course, if your customers are from other parts of the world. You might have a lot of people that like getting on Twitter at 4 in the morning because they're in a certain market overseas. It can be very tricky. For small businesses, you tend to be attached to your, hopefully, mobile device that has capabilities of responding to social media. Certainly an easy way to do it instead of firing up the laptop every time someone, every few hours just to check. But if you're in a larger business, it actually becomes even more complicated because there needs to be some sort of staff member or roster that's going to be looking after social media, and therefore what happens with their remuneration and conditions. So lots of delving into that, but it does need to be covered all the time. With social media, you can keep it shorter as well. As you know, obviously Twitter, 140 characters, and it is very much less formal. So you don't need to be as formal as you would in an email. Again, respond as soon as you can, because it's not only just the one person waiting for a response. There will be other people looking at the post as well, and they'll be judging you on how soon you respond too. It's really important not to talk about any specific information like dates and prices in a social media post. Some people talk prices, but they have to be really careful if they're offering different rates. You would definitely take it into an email situation or maybe a Facebook private message. You certainly don't want people's dates that they're going away on your social media page, because there'll be all sorts of issues there. Now here's a sample that Susan showed me yesterday, and this is really interesting. I'm surprised here to see that Qantas say that they're available here on Facebook to chat between 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I thought to myself, well, that's good that they're there, but it certainly doesn't help anyone who's there Saturday, Sunday, or any time out of 9 to 5. And let's face it, we're probably more likely to be online after work, so that you can imagine their busiest time would probably be after work. But yeah, I'm surprised at that, and I would hate to see that on one of your pages. I think there's better ways to handle that. Another thing is text speak. Now the teenagers, they know exactly what all of this means, and yeah, even my son who's dyslexic knows exactly what all of those things mean. It seems to be their first language, which is rather disturbing. But unless you've got a pure teenage market and that's who you're appealing to, you would only probably use these in places, in some social media that requires the brief messages, like I'd suggest Twitter, maybe not even Facebook. Occasionally you see people put LOL, which stands for laugh out loud, on Facebook. So you can see those there. If you're interested in working out what other ones mean, you might have seen some other ones either sent to you in a text or on social media. Just type in text speak or text abbreviations, and you'll probably end up on Wikipedia, and you'll see a great list of the different abbreviations there. Some of them are quite funny. We're still talking about what's right and wrong online, and one of the things, that's considered bad form and online is if you hijack a post or a thread. So it might be on Facebook, it could be any social media really, and it could be in some sort of forum as well. If you go off topic in a conversation, it's considered very bad form. So the conversation might have been things to do in Longreach, but it ended up talking about things to do in New South Wales, completely gone in a different direction. That's considered very, very bad form online. So if you can help it at all, don't try and change a conversation and move it in a different direction. If you do want to start a conversation, start a new thread in a forum or start a new post online in social media. Now, something we all have to do, no matter how good your business is, you will get negative comments because you can't be all things to everyone. And there's a certain element of people that are just plain nasty and will write horrible things to you. The important things to remember with negative comments is not to take it personally. It's really hard not to take it personally. My business was really successful. We started off with just 2 people and built it up to about 40,000 people a year, which was pretty good for Tassie. And once or twice a year we might get a complaint about something, and every time it happened I wouldn't sleep for about a week. I just took it so personally. But it wasn't personally, it wasn't about me, it was about the experience that the customer had. And yeah, so first and foremost, don't take it personally. What needs to happen is you need to get the full story from your staff, and don't just take your staff's side, don't take the customer's side, just consider all things equally, and don't respond in haste. The first thing, when you get an email or some sort of comment online, it might be on TripAdvisor, you just want to get on there and blast them. How dare they say something bad about your business? Your business is, you live and breathe it, it's your baby, you love it, and you certainly can't handle anyone saying anything bad. But my advice is you need to respond swiftly, but don't do a knee-jerk response. You need to sit on it. If you need to sleep on it overnight, if it's an email, that's fine. But at least go for a little walk, take a few deep breaths before you respond. And particularly with something like TripAdvisor, you are responding to that person, but that's just one person. But everyone else gets to see you respond, to see the response and how you handle negative criticism. So I always encourage my people to see particularly TripAdvisor as a space to shine. So you've been given this free real estate online, this space underneath to respond. You need to respond to it and use it, flick it around, certainly deal with the complaint, but use it as an opportunity to shine. And as I've said, you must deal with them swiftly, but not too swiftly. And always take the complaint serious. I remember in my business, if I got a complaint, it was so easy for me to say, oh, you know what, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't got a clue. This person's stupid, rah, rah, rah. And really, once I looked into it a little further and did take it seriously, I'd find out that there might have been something that we could have done a little differently. So I guess what I'm saying is don't discount every complaint. Actually listen to it and explore. It might be something, an opportunity to fix something and make your business that much better. Language that's easy to understand. These are the things that we've mentioned before. Be clear and concise, and be friendly and courteous. Always offer them more contact, and yeah, the ability to contact you again if needs be. And honestly, a good old-fashioned phone call. I know we're talking about technology here, but a good old-fashioned phone call, two people having a conversation, is often a really good way to diffuse any anger and to really understand, because emails back and forward can turn nasty. So my advice, old-fashioned as it is you might just sometimes need to pick up the phone. Now this looks a bit complicated, and I don't expect you to take it all in here and now, but this is, there's a lady called Laurel Papworth, and you can see her contact details down the bottom there, and she was pretty much the first social media expert in Australia. You might have seen her on TV, and she's certainly got a strong presence online. This is a really, really handy tool for dealing with negative comments in social media, and it can be applied to email and other forms as well. So the way it works, just to explain it to you, and I'm sure Suze could get you the link or a copy of this at some stage. So you can see that there is one big bluey pinky box, and up the top it says company voice impersonal, and then over the other side it says human voice personal. So you need to decide with your responses as to whether you're going to be a more company, corporate, formal type voice, or whether your voice is going to be a human voice, which is a more personal. Now through the lines in the middle here, you can see an orangey line, and it says best, and the line runs in behind all of the text. And there's another line down below that says worst, and that's yellow. And that is the best case scenario and the worst case scenario of what could happen. So the way that this works is it says your choices are, so say if someone gets on Facebook and says something bad about your business, you have a choice. So the first choice here is ignore, the second one legal, deflect, etc., etc., and it goes on. So we'll use ignore as an example. So if you decide to ignore someone, a critic that's on your page, the best case of what will happen is the critic will go away, the community may intervene to support you. So someone will jump on and say, hey, that's not right, this business is really good, you've got it wrong, mate. The worst case, which is down in the yellow section, is the critics won't go away and they will activate an anti-community. Now you've probably seen an anti-community, maybe an I hate such and such, usually a big corporation or someone like that, and that will be the worst case of what happens. The interesting thing with this is that there's not a right answer that covers you all the time. So if you are a small business, you can print this off and stick it somewhere close by the computer, or if you're a large business, you might want to incorporate something like this into your communication social media strategy. What happens is if something happens, something goes wrong online, and we've all seen examples of that, like Qantas with their competition they had a little while ago. The choices are to ignore, threaten legal, deflect, remove, educate, confess, fight or own. And for everything that may go wrong, you need to consider everyone separately and choose which course of action you're going to do. And that's why this is such a great tool, because it will help you with your responses. And so in terms of the business processes, I've spoken a bit about a communications plan. There's an opportunity for every size business to have a communications plan or strategy. The big businesses do them, and they have to have them because they've got multiple people managing their online and offline activities. But smaller businesses, it could just be a simple page that says something about who's doing the responding and when, what sort of corporate voice you're going to use. That could just be a sentence or two saying, this is the way we respond. We're friendly, funny and upbeat, for example. And also some information on managing negative comments, and that previous slide would be a good one to have in there for all sorts of business. So that's really simple, very, very simplified of the things that you'd want to put in there. You'd also want to put in how it integrates with your marketing strategy and how it integrates with all sorts of offline strategy and with the experience that you're trying to provide for your customers as well. So lots of things that can go in there, but these are the basic ones that apply to what we've been talking about today. And of course, if you can't be there, and I know I have clients that are tour operators and they go off the grid for a few days, it can be a week or two at a time, especially in Tasmania if they're going bushwalking. Can't get in contact with them. So simple things. The auto response message is an oldie but a goodie on your mail. Messages on phone, again, a no-brainer, but a really handy thing to do, even if you're not around for even an hour or two. It might be handy depending on how full on your business is. You can put a post on social media. You could make it really fun. You could say, hey guys, we're heading out bush at the moment. We won't be back until whenever, and we'll respond to you then. And you can outsource your communications. There are people that can handle your communications for you. But as business owners, we know that no one can do it as good as you. No one gets your business as good as you, so that you do really need to consider that opportunity, particularly if you're going away for a while. Automating tasks, this is one of my favourite subjects. I'm always looking for ways to make my life easier. So you need to free yourself from those repeating tasks. So things like email templates are a wonderful way of making your life that little bit easier. In my business we had probably, I think it was about 10 different templates, and we used them for various things. It might have been for functions or confirmations or whatever, really. There were lots of reasons to use them, and certainly made our lives easier, but we wrote them in a way that made them sound like they were just us tapping out an email. So you have to be a bit clever about the way that you do them. Signatures with all contact details on the bottom. It's amazing how many people don't have signatures on the bottom of their emails. So there's no other way of knowing how to contact it. I think it looks a little bit dodgy, almost like it's spam if I get something from someone like that. And on your mobile phones as well, and I think I'm guilty of this, there is the automatic response, if it's on an iPhone, says sent from my iPhone. You can actually jump in and change that to have your own signature on there. So that's a nice way, and it can actually look like it's not being sent from an iPhone and you're busily working away in your office. So that's a good little trick. You can also schedule social media posts, and this of course is a topic for another day, but just for you to keep in mind, there are lots of different tools. In fact, I wrote one of the eKit modules, which is handling, I think it's called handling multiple social media accounts, and it talks about different ways of automating your social media, and that includes using things called dashboards that you can bring all your social media into one program and manage it all from there. And one of the main things that you can do with those type of dashboards and with the individual social media itself is that you can schedule posts for future. A little bit tricky because you might inadvertently schedule something that's inappropriate. There might be some news that's happened and you're making a previous joke about something. I've seen it happen. Can't think of the example, but I have seen it happen before. One example that I have seen is one of my clients who has a cafe had an automatic schedule going in on Monday saying something like, come in for a coffee, you need it, it's Monday morning, we all need coffee, etc., etc. And it was actually scheduled inadvertently for a public holiday and they were closed, so they got a lot of backlash over that. So you can schedule posts, but you just need to be mindful, and I encourage you to jump on and check out that eKit tutorial that talks all about it. And of course involve your other staff as well. It's so easy to want to just grab it and hold it and hog it all to yourself, but if you've got someone, particularly with social media, the young ones have got a good handle on it. If you can get them to really understand the corporate voice and understand the customers, they can certainly help with with scheduling with social media when you're not around. So just other little tricks. There are following up processes that you can do. If someone does a booking with you or inquiry, you may like to follow it up. You can schedule a secondary email. Some emails you can actually schedule an email to go off at a different time, and of course do a follow-up call. There are all sorts of great programs. You can actually track your responses as well. One of those is MailChimp, which is a handy program. You can collect birthday greetings. There are surveys as well. So SurveyMonkey is a great one that you can do. And also sales offers. There's endless, and again, this kind of gets into the promotions and marketing territory. So I'll leave it at that, but again, we could talk for hours about these kind of things. Another thing that's considered to be bad etiquette online is the size of attachments. There is a cloud-based service for sharing large attachments. So there's Dropbox and you send it, and there is actually some information, I think I saw it on Wikipedia, where you can just put the size of the different email providers, and it will tell you the size of attachments that it can handle. And keeping on top of your online presence. This is an oldie but a goodie, but put reminders in electronic calendar. And also you can have a social media calendar as well, which I think we've mentioned in previous sessions, maybe not webinars, but there is information on how to set up a social media calendar, which is just pretty much, you can do it in an Excel document, write down the days of the year, and put in all sorts of holidays and Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, etc., and then put in things that are relevant to your business. And before you know it, you've actually got a pretty full calendar of things that you can write about, but then you can fill up the spaces with other very specific things to your business as well. So that will certainly help automate the process for you. There are some privacy issues. So Susan, I thought it might be good to put a bit about privacy and the legalities of things. If you have a, if someone books with you and you happen to get their email address, unless they've actually ticked a box in the booking process to say that they want to receive promotional updates from you, you can't actually just throw their email into the mix and start sending them information. They need express permission. So other ways to get that express permission, of course, are on your website. You can have, say, a MailChimp, for example, sign up, or a social media sign up. There's, I've actually seen MailChimp embedded in Facebook pages. There, of course, is good old paper at your reception area, or if your accommodation forms in your room as well, but you do need to get that permission. If you do get data, it's appropriate for you to explain what you collect, as in I've got your first name, last name, email and birthday. You also need to explain to them where you store the information, because that's important as well, what you will and will not do with it, and you need to keep the consent records for future reference. So you might see someone's privacy policy on their website, and this is what they're addressing with that. So please, there is some information here, and the Australian Communications and Media Authority, or ACMA, that website there has information on how to handle that. It's called spam law. You don't want to be a spammer. Someone who sends out unrequested emails is a spammer, and you don't want to be one of those. You're not from Nigeria trying to get people to send money to you. Photos online. Do not use someone else's photos without permission, and you have to get the permission and give them credit as well. And most customers are so proud of their photos, their happy snaps that they took at your property, that they are very happy for you to use them. So just ask and you'll be amazed. They'll more often say yes. If you've got a professional photographer, always make sure that you negotiate with them up front where you can and can't use the photos and who has the rights. So that's before they actually start the photo shoot. And if you want to use a photo on a photo, it's just changed. Photo sharing. Sorry, technology. If you want to use a photo on a photo sharing site, be sure to check out their terms of use as well. And this is just a little bit of information about copyright. So copyright applies online as well as offline. If you don't own it or have permission to use it, then just don't do it. Do not use Google Images, and that's really tempting. If you need a picture of something, you just Google it, switch over to an image search, and there's heaps of images. Yeah, you can't do that. And you can't say, as your defense, that you just didn't know what the law was. And apparently that just doesn't cut it. But of course you can use the stock images that have the licensing. So iStock, Shutterstock and Getty Images are just some, and there's lots of other ones as well. And you can look up, if you type in Creative Commons, copyright free, words like that, you will actually get some access to some free images. Another oldie but a goodie is the Google Alerts. It's been around for quite a while. I'm still amazed at how many businesses don't use Google Alerts. But what it is you just go into google.com.au/alerts, and what you see there on the right-hand side is a page grab of that page. And all you do is you type in your business name with a search query, and then leave the result at everything. And next question is how often. Some people have it as it happens, but I actually get it sent through, or depending on the search, I get it sent through once a week. But if it's a business that I'm monitoring, I get it sent every day. But if you're monitoring a business that's pretty busy and you want to be sure that you find out every time your business is mentioned online, leave it as it happens. And then what you do is you press create alert, send you an email to say that it's created the alert, and from then on in, every time your business name is mentioned online, you will get an alert about it. So every new, it's often you'll find it will be on tourism websites, so it might be your regional tourism organisation, it might be your local government, or it could be a blog, so a visitor's come over and written a blog about you. It's great to actually see what people are saying about you, and you do have, depending on where it is, the opportunity to respond. If it is something bad, you've got the opportunity to respond. If it is something good, you've got the opportunity to share that on your social media and say, look what this person has written about our product. They said it was the best thing ever. So it's a great tool. Now, speaking of great tools, Tourism Queensland, Tourism and Events Queensland have some, they're just brilliant resources. I would say they're second to none in terms of what's available in Australia. They've got the Tourism E-Kit, of course, which is from the ATDW, and that will tell you pretty much everything you need to know about online marketing, and we update that regularly as well. And there is the big marketing guide. So when I was talking before about brands and target markets, if you need a bit of a brush up on that, just type in Tourism Queensland and the big marketing guide, and that will come up in a Google search. Go in and have a look at that. There are lots of things in the resource centre as well, particularly if you need to know about research. That's useful. All sorts of how-to guides. Yeah, very handy. I'd encourage you to have a look at that. And the Better Business Guide, same sort of things apply. Lots of information in there. And the Digital Ready program, which I'm obviously very lucky to be involved in. Lots of great workshops all around the country. Mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, which is really handy. Every business is different, so it's good to actually be able to sit down one-on-one and talk to one of the amazing coaches about that. Coaching service, if ever you don't know something, or if something's bugging you, got a question about what we've discussed today, coaching service, the amazing digital coaches, there's usually at least one of them back in the office who can answer phone calls and emails. And the webinars, which you've been involved in today. So there's Susan, who we've heard from before, and Mirko, and there's also Jane as well, and they're all based in Brisbane, and they just swing me in whenever I'm needed. And as you know, I'm based in Tassie. So I'd like to say a big thank you for listening today. Hopefully you've got some stuff out of it. It's certainly a bit tricky getting just being a one person talking for an hour, but I do hope that you've enjoyed it, and I'll hand back over to Suze.
Thank you, Beck. Yeah, that was great. I know a lot of people in the webinar today would have got a lot from this today, so we haven't got much time, but if anybody has a quick question that would like answered, I've already had a couple come through that I have answered. There was one about how do I schedule a Facebook post. Now, if anybody else is not sure on that, you do have the ability to schedule your posts, which is a really handy tool. Now, you can only do it on your page. You can't do it if you're putting a message out onto somebody else's page, for instance, onto another business. You can't do it in that case, but only on yours. You've got a little clock that's in the lower left-hand corner of where you post. If you just click on that and then follow the stages through, it'll ask you for the year, the month, the day, the time, and so forth. It's a little bit tedious the way they've set it up, but at least you can still do that, which is great. So that was one question. Let's just see who else has posted. We've got a thank you, Rebecca from Tufik. She's put in there, thank you very much. You've got a message from Pete saying thanks, she's great.
Oh, thank you.
Andrew has said no questions, just thanks for a great talk. So it's great. So it looks like Lots of people have enjoyed today, which is fantastic. And just so that you know, I'm not sure if anybody's noticed, along the way when Beck has mentioned any resources or anything, I have put a link to that resource in the chat area down in that bottom lower left-hand corner. So there's a link there to the YouTube one for United Brakes Guitars. So if anybody hasn't seen it, you can hop on and have a look. I put a link to that e-kit that she mentioned about managing multiple social media accounts. And I also put a link to the Laurel Papworth screen grab that was in there about the negative comments in social media. So if anybody wanted to see that information, you can just click through on those links that I provided, and you'll go straight to those points. So, which is great. So, and I'll just make sure that there's no other messages that have come through. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you in Longreach from Glenda.
Oh, hi Glenda, how are you?
So she's put that up there. David has said thanks for your advice. Colleen has said thank you, excellent information. So it looks like we haven't had any actual questions, which is fantastic. So it must mean we've ticked all the boxes for everybody today for all the information that they needed, which is fantastic. No, and that looks like it. Let me just go check the chat area. No, there's nothing come in there, and I'll just go make sure there's no hands up anywhere. No, no hands up. So it looks like we have come to the end of the webinar. So thank you very much, everybody, and a big thank you to Beck today for joining us and to delivering this webinar. She's a wealth of knowledge, and we love having her as part of backup for us when we need it. So we love to have you up here as often as we need to have you up here.
Thank you. I love it too. In fact, I think it might be cooler up in Queensland today than what it is here. I think I might have to come up.
Yeah,
cool down.
yes, I think you will. So we're overcast again today. So, but thank you everybody for joining and taking the time out of your busy day. So much appreciated. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are recording today, and what we do is we just have that edited so that the sound quality does come through okay, and make sure all the slides and everything are working on the video version. So once that is up, you will see. We'll probably send it out to you because you joined today, but we'll also put it up into our newsletter to say that the videos are available. So keep an eye out in our newsletter, and you should get that information come through soon. So once again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Suze. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rebecca. Bye.
Bye.
I'll just make sure there's no last-minute questions, but it doesn't look like there is. Yep, everybody's leaving. Yep, people are leaving, so that's good. So thank you, Beck, again.
That's all right. Thank you for